White and mixed, so white.
So you grew up on South Side?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then moving to the north, like, did you move to the North Side for comedy?
I moved to the North Side because I was working at Second City, and commuting to work was easier when you get off of work at like 1, 2 in the morning. You know, having to go a couple of stops north on the Red Line versus going to the other side of the city on the brown or green, if the brown or green are still on.
Yeah.
Because they turn off.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
You're from out here, right?
I've lived here since I was 6.
Okay. I'm gonna basically say you're from here then. Yeah, because when I moved out here, I realized, like, oh, they've segregated the city, not only obviously racially, but like with public transit. Like, you can't really use public transit in the South Side the same way you can do up here. Yeah. I assume that's on purpose?
It's very on purpose. Things have gotten worse. There are not only dividing lines in North and South when it comes to, like...
You need to choke on.
Oh, yep.
Okay.
Cool. So there aren't only, like, dividing lines North and South, but there are also poverty lines East and West until you get to the suburbs of either.
I can see that.
So that is its own mess, and, like, a lot of trains mean that for certain people. Like, I live by the Green Line on the South Side, and everything east of King Drive, you know, streets start getting paved, houses start getting bigger, etc. You go west of King Drive, shit start looking different. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing a lot of abandoned buildings, you're seeing dilapidated parks, etc., etc.
Did you drive? You have a car, right?
I got a ride from a friend who was visiting me.
Okay.
Lives around here, so she just dropped me off.
Okay, cool. I was about to say, man, if you took public transit up here, I was about to feel real bad.
I was gonna. I was just gonna take green to brown and then brown here.
Okay, well, we're here. The big question for me, I'm so curious, is the during that faithful night at the protest. So we met what 3 weeks ago, if that. Yeah, and when you showed up, I didn't know about you at all, and I've been here a little over a year, so I like to think I have a general sense of like who's around, and everyone reacted to you like happy. They were happy to see you and surprised, and then I found out that you got arrested. Do you want, if that's cool to talk about? I don't know. You got arrested during the protest. Can we break that down? What happened?
What you said.
Okay.
It's not. I got arrested at the protest. That's really it.
So during quarantine, what was your living situation?
I was on house arrest at a friend's house because the police department, the Chicago Police Department, actually released my address on their social media, so I couldn't go home. Okay.
So and this is before the arrest?
This is while I was being interrogated.
Okay. So let's go. Quarantine happens. You're doing comedy, right?
Quarantine happens. I'm making videos at home. And working on music. Okay. And like enjoying my stimmies. Had a girlfriend for like 2 months.
Okay.
That was a mistake.
Oh, okay. Y'all were locked up together?
No, I was living at my crib. She was at her crib. We see each other frequently. We visit. I wasn't going places except to her house. She worked from home. I didn't have a job. So, you know, I had money saved up from working beforehand, and then I got the stimmies. So I was doing okay. Doing, the government assistance was probably the most financially stable I think I had ever been. Is your camera off?
It's if the little red button's going, we're good to go.
Okay, I didn't want you to.
I appreciate
miss anything. So yeah, you know.
Were you doing comedy at that point?
I had been doing comedy for a little bit, but other than making videos every now and then, I kind of stepped away.
Okay.
I wasn't doing anything, really. I was enjoying not having anything to do for the first time ever, because it was go to work, get home at 2 in the morning, wake up at 10, work on music or like work on jokes, and then go to work again, or go to a show, or go to work and a show, or go to a show in the middle of the work and use my lunch break to do the show. Yeah. Because I worked in a comedy club, and I'm like, all right, cool. I have to go upstairs during my lunch break, perform, and then go back to work. So I was just enjoying not having anything to fucking do.
What comedy club were you working?
I was at Second City.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And so lockdown happens, then George Floyd gets killed. And I was in the burbs of California, so I completely different experience than you. From what I hear, protests were happening in downtown, and then Lori Lightfoot specifically pulled the lever, and then put all like basically made the Tarot Dome. Like you couldn't get out of the downtown.
You couldn't get out of downtown. So she announced a curfew 2 minutes before it started. She announced I want to say a 7 o'clock curfew at 6:58, and then lifted the bridges.
Jesus.
And I live north of downtown, and the bridges go north. So they're like, disperse, disperse, disperse. This protest is unlawful, and we can't leave because they dispersed, or they're telling us to disperse. They lifted the bridges. They're also at the train stations, blocking the train stations. So if you get out of downtown, you're like, all right, I'm going home. I'm going to get on the train. They're stopping people from getting on the train. They're stopping people from getting on buses, and they're stopping people from leaving. They're stopping people from going further west. There's nothing east except lakefront, so there's nowhere to go. You can't go south, and you can't go north. Bridges are up, and you can't get on the train.
So when you were there, were you with a friend? Were you alone?
I was alone.
You were alone. Okay, so you go to the protest alone. The 2-minute warning happens. The sirens go off. They lift the bridges. What do? Where are you? Like, what's going on around you? Do you remember?
The police officers started pulling out their sticks and beating people and spraying people in point blank range.
Okay.
They told people to disperse, but then they chased everybody. So they're telling us to leave, and we're leaving, and they're chasing us, which legally means that we are still in the vicinity that they want us to leave. Because if the vicinity moves, then we're still breaking the law.
Okay. And
which means they can still beat us.
Right. So then they grab. I'm guessing you got hit with some shit.
I got hit in the face. An officer knocked me down to the ground and yelled me to disperse, and then other officers started hitting me while I was on the ground. A medic had to pick me up. I got pepper sprayed in the eye and I couldn't see. So I was trying to like skate out of there, but I couldn't see. So I got off of my board and I started walking because I couldn't see.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna roll around on a stick while people are hitting me, and like jack myself up worse.
And they just arrested you and
they kettled a bunch of people.
Okay.
They stuck us to a building while still yelling disperse.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like somebody tells you get out of their house and then they stand in front of the door and kick you over and over again for not leaving. And they lock their windows. So you're just it's very Jeffrey Dahmer. It's very you can't get out. And the white people are beating you and you can't leave.
So
it's very that.
So yeah, I've had the cuffs on me and they yelled it. It's like I feel like they do it in case someone's recording so that they can say, well, we told them such and such, and then here we are.
Right. And it's exactly that. None of the judges are looking at that footage and going, well, you can't grab people while they're leaving, while telling them to leave. None of them are doing that. None of them are doing that. There's just, I wouldn't even call it a lack of common sense. It is a willful ignoring of just what people are looking at.
Right.
They are just willfully going, no, it's okay that police officer told you to leave, then put you in a rear naked choke while you tried to leave, while you tried to obey them.
It's a lot.
They don't care.
So you get arrested, you get thrown in was it one of those van cop cars?
Oh no, they asked for a special transport for me and then transported me alone, brought me in, interrogated me, and then put me in a cell. I was in a cell for 2 days. They gave me the charges. My bail got paid that day, and then they held me for another 4 days after they paid my bail.
So, first off, with the interrogation part, I'm picturing fucking Menace to Society in a cold room with a light on your face. Is that basically it, or what was it like?
Yeah, it was cold.
Okay. Okay, cold and uncomfortable. Sounds about right.
No table.
No tape. Oh, so you
just a bench and I'm cuffed to the wall.
Okay. So then you're in jail. Had you been to jail before? What was that experience like for you?
It looked like my school.
Okay. That's real depressing. And were there other protests, or was it just protesters, just you, people that?
I didn't see them until I got brought to county.
Okay. And from what I was told, no one contacted friends or family for you?
Not at jail, no.
Okay.
They wanted me to think that nobody knew what happened to me.
And then they let you out after what? Was it a week basically?
Yeah, a week. After, okay. Which again, also illegal. You're right. Supposed to let me out when I pay my bail.
Right.
That day, usually within an hour or two.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
So you get out, then what happens? What do you?
I get put on house arrest. They put the monitor on me, and I'm at my friend's crib because I couldn't go home because they released my address on their social media.
And you were in house arrest, but not even at your own house.
Yeah, for a little while.
That's wild. So you're in house arrest. What, this would have been summer still?
Yeah, it's August. I was arrested on the 15th. I was released on house arrest on the 20th, so I was in for 5 days.
Okay, so you got put in the house arrest, and then eventually they move you to your.
I get to move back to my own apartment where my lease is, and that took forever because my lawyer had asked for them to move me in August. They didn't move me until almost Halloween.
Jesus. Do you think this was all just mind games? Like, were they just trying to fuck with you? Or?
Some of it is that.
Okay.
Some of it is that the Cook County police, no, this was actually out of the police department's hand because that was malice. The sheriff's department, more often than not, they don't even know who I am or what my charges are.
Right.
They just aren't good at their jobs. They just are not good at their jobs. They lose paperwork. They lose track of things. They're understaffed. Everybody's working overtime. Everybody's tired. But it's one of those jobs where it's like, you got people's lives and freedom in your hands. We can't afford for y'all to fuck up like this.
Right.
So like also when you need help, there's a call center that you call. The call center is not the sheriff. So the call center will tell you something. A different member of the call center will tell you something else an hour later, depending on if the staff changed, depending on how they were trained. Because there's no consistency. And then the sheriff will have a completely different idea. So a lot of dealing with them was me recording them. And then when they would come to my house, I would play back to them what was said so that they could hear why I don't know what the fuck is going on. And they're like, oh, yeah, they're not supposed to do that. Some officers were like, yeah, they're not supposed to do that. I don't know why they told you that, not on you. Other officers would be like, yeah, you can do that. We don't actually care about that. Other officers would be like, we care about that a lot. If that happens again, we're going to take you to jail. One officer came in and he accused me of trying to sneak away because I asked for permission to take my trash out, which multiple sheriffs, meaning his own coworkers, and the call center told me I was allowed to do as long as I called them and either stayed on the phone while I was taking out my trash so that they could hear me go back inside and they could look at my location and track me live. Or I called back in after I was done to check back in and be like, hey, I took out my trash. Trash is out. So I couldn't keep my apartment clean by myself.
And how long this was a year of house arrest?
No, 2.
2 years? God damn.
I got out in June of this year.
Do you feel like, how old are you? 20?
I turned 28 right before we met.
Okay. How do you, I guess, feel now? Do you feel like that's changed the way you look at things? Or do you feel like you're good now? Like, because that feels really traumatizing. That sounds really traumatizing.
It is what it is.
Okay. And so now you're going to get back. Now that that's all over with, you're going to get back into comedy. What's the plan?
I don't have a plan.
Okay. All right. You just flying by the
stuff.
Yeah. How long have you been playing music?
2018.
Since 2018. What do you play?
I rap and I produce.
That's sick.
And I used to drum in high school.
That's sick, man. Yeah, I play bass and I play. I'm learning chromatic harmonica. You get as a drummer, you know how like you got all this shit you got to carry around. So I was like, let me get a harmonica. Let me get something nice and simple so I can just bust that out any time. So that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in my high school's drum line.
Yeah.
My music teacher was like, you need extra credit and you're not good at reading music.
It's like,
so come do drumline practice, and we're offering extra credit for that.
Nice.
And then I did that, and then I learned how to read music.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How'd that work? Like, how did you learn how to read music from? I don't know shit about drumming and shit.
Well, the drumming he just had music sheets up.
Yeah.
And when you're reading music, you're practicing your timing, and you're hitting the quarter notes, and you're learning what a quarter note is and what a half note is, et cetera, et cetera. That way you could drum on time.
Makes sense.
So while I'm learning the routines for band and for like homecomings and shit like that, I'm learning how to read music, and that's how I learned how to read music. Anytime
I see drums, I immediately think of Nick Cannon Drumline. And Whiplash. Have you seen Whiplash?
I have not seen Whiplash.
Oh my God. I think as a drummer, I think you would really love it. It's J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller. It's the most intense. I've never seen.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all of the memes that came out of that movie as a funny nigga. Yeah. I just ain't seen it. I'm just like, I don't need to watch white people be mean to each other.
Oh, you don't want to watch? You don't like that? It's so good.
After what I've been through, I don't want to watch anybody be mean to anybody right now.
So you're in a place of like you want peace in your life.
I want peace or solitude. Probably a mix of both.
A mix of peace. Okay. Interesting. Were you like that? Did you want that peace pre all of this bullshit, or were you?
Before the pandemic hit, God, what is that word? I was relapsing on my alcoholism really bad. Okay. So I had gone sober for about 2 years. Was at Second City. Had a rough time. Relapsed on my alcoholism bad, and then. Want to say March of the pandemic, I'm like, I'm not drinking anymore. And then I made it through most of house arrest without drinking.
Good for you, man. That's a stressful time to be not drinking alcohol. Yeah. If anything, that's when when I got into quarantine, that's when my alcohol intake increased. Yeah, you don't have shit to do.
Yeah, no, and everybody would hang out and they'd be like, "Oh, I brought whiskey," and I'm like, "Cool. I don't know what you want me to do with that because I'm not touching it." And then I drank while I can count less than 20 times through the entirety of house arrest. And by 20 times, I mean a drink. I had less than 20 drinks while on house arrest.
That is impressive.
Yeah, now I drink I don't even drink that much now. I drink once a week, if that. And it's like I have a shot of a bullet. I have a double at the bar, and I drink a little bit of it before I go on stage in order to like get my nerves together.
I get you.
And then I finish it after I'm off stage. That way I don't get too loopy and forget my set. And then I drink half a pitcher of water. And then I go home.
There you go. Do you ever had peanut butter whiskey?
Yes.
I haven't had it yet. I don't think I have. Is it as good as everyone keeps saying?
I had it at this is a bar across the street from Second City called Corcoran's. And one of the bartenders there, he and I were introduced by a coworker of mine who likes to drink there sometimes. She introduced us, and he and I have the same favorite candy. We both love Reese's Cups. Yes. So I would sometimes bring him Reese's Cups, and he let me try peanut butter whiskey. Yeah. And it was really good.
Okay.
It was really good. I had a good time with it.
Okay. Give me some peanut butter whiskey. Yeah. I mean, so I know you said you don't have a plan. Do you want to be a stand-up comic? Do you want to be a musician? I don't know. I'm piecing together, I guess, what your goals and interests are.
I have interests. I have a lot of interests. I don't have any goals right now. I had them before the arrest, and a lot of that got taken. Like, I cannot, and I was talking to a friend about this last night. I had so many shows and opportunities that I just could not physically go to. So I missed out on job opportunities. I missed out on shows that weren't over Zoom when the world opened back. When the world opened back up, I missed a lot. And when I got out into the world after 2 years of people on social media saying we're gonna come to everything, we're gonna go to all your stuff, I can't get more than 5 or 6 people into a room afterwards. Like what you saw at the day we met was happenstance that this many people who knew who I was were in a room at once. Cause I can't get people to come to any of my things. I think I had my first music live performance after being released from house arrest, and we advertised and everything, and I think maybe 13 people showed up to a 300 person room, and I've played bigger rooms than 300 people. Like, I've played Second City's main stage before. I've played big rooms. So it was humbling, and it has made me rethink if I want to do anything, because I realize the bulk of the fandom that I had built were people who showed up solely because I was on house arrest, and the videos of my house arrest monitor going off while I was at home, and Cook County accusing me of being outside, because I have more than 500 videos, like, in the cloud and on multiple devices, of just my leg monitor going off and them saying I'm outside when I'm not, all of which got used against me in court to prolong my house arrest, despite the fact that I had evidence that I didn't leave. Those people came for that. So when I was like, hey, I'm making a music Instagram and a comedy Instagram, like, this is where my art's going to be, out of the 7,000 to 9,000, like anywhere between 7,000 and 9,000 people on like all of my socials accumulated, maybe 400 people showed up, and even less so come to my things. And you know, you're inside, and for 2 years everybody's like, we're gonna come to everything that you do as soon as you get out, and then no one comes to stuff because the world kind of moved on without you, and your thing is you're the house arrest guy. Like, I will introduce myself to people and they'll be like, oh, you're the house arrest guy, and it's like, nothing I did before that I've done since really matters. And it makes me rethink if I want to do stuff at all.
Does me, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that. That's really awful. I really don't have words for what I'm hearing, because it sounds horrendous. You know, Rachel Hall, she was the only one who gave me any sort of context, because I was like, who's this guy? Like, what's going on here? And so she gave me as much information as she understood. And so hearing it from you, I don't even think it's fair for me to say I would be angry about it, because I think you have the right to be angry. I don't even know if I have the right to be angry, but it's even more eye-opening how just fucked our system is and our country is. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a bunch of stuff down, so let me see if I can get myself organized here. So I guess starting with the goal stuff, it sounds like this is really derailed shit, like completely.
Mm-hmm. Fucks your whole life up.
So you don't see yourself as getting those goals back, or maybe you're pivoting? Like, I guess I want to understand what hopefully the future holds for you in the most positive way possible. Because you seem like a very nice guy, and you seem like a creative. You seem very intense. I think it's the earrings, but I mean, you seem like a nice enough guy, and and it sounds like you were working hard before all this shit happened. And I guess I would hate to see any sort of potential squandered, but I guess, you know, you're you, so I don't know. What were the goals pre-pandemic?
The goals were do music, do comedy, uplift black people.
That's simple.
Those were the three.
Do music, do comedy, uplift black people. And where were you always? I hate that white people took the word woke, because it doesn't mean the same shit anymore. It
not even close.
It's a different thing now. But were you always aware, always socially conscious type of guy?
I was a straight up Hotep in college.
I
went through a Hotep phase.
I got questions.
Yeah, no, I went through a whole Hotep black womb man phase in college, and I didn't lean into the homophobia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had an openly gay sibling.
Yeah.
Now I have two. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm a Hotep and we fuck with gay niggas. Like, so it was like,
so you peaked.
So like,
you have improved upon the Hoteps.
And then the Hoteps didn't like me because they're like, you keep bringing gay niggas around. I'm like, we can't have shit without them. And then I looked at it and I'm like, y'all niggas have regressive ideas about women and like sexual freedom, and I like fucking. So
wait, so can you?
I don't like this.
for the layman, for those of you who don't know. Oh, and there goes the camera. God damn it. Sorry, I gotta get a better camera for this shit. Don't worry, we got this all audio.
I mean, yeah, that's real.
But what is a Hotep? What do they believe? Is Kanye right? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, of course Kanye's wrong.
No, but what is it? How do you describe a Hotep?
God, Kevin Samuels. I can name names.
Okay, yeah.
Better than I can say words. Kevin Samuels, Cornell West to a degree, because Cornell West, I think that nigga's heart is in the right place, but I don't hear him talk. Like, anytime you have a conversation with like a black person or like a black man specifically, and the first thing they go is, we got to save the streets. You know, this will actually, because this happened to me.
Okay.
I'm going to work, right, and I'm in a Lyft. And my Lyft driver is like trying to start this like organization to like help black youth with stuff, and he wants to start like a boys group to counsel them and help them like work on their anger and shit. And I'm like, cool, this is the opposite of toxic masculinity. I'm all for this shit. He's like, you know, because what's really wrong with our community is these damn single mothers. And I'm like, what's wrong with the black community is the parent that stayed.
Okay,
that's what's wrong with niggas, that one of them kept raising you.
Yeah.
No conversation about how men just decide to leave or are dishonest with how they use protection, because stealthing does occur.
I didn't know we had a name for it. Stealthing.
Yeah, stealthing. Yeah, people do stealth people. People do stealth people. People do that. Abhorrent, genuine part of rape culture, in my opinion, and in the public zeitgeist. Like, if all matters of consent ain't informed, then it ain't consent.
That's
you
fair.
Feel me? You know, just goofy shit like that, malicious and dangerous shit like that. We also don't talk about how the prison industrial complex like rips families apart. Like, I think the closest we got to it in pop culture that like white folk were aware of was what happened in Ant-Man, where Scott got out and wanted to see his daughter, and his wife and his ex-wife was like, you got to pay child support and then you can visit your daughter. You have to give me money and then you can be a parent. And he's like, I'm an ex-con. I am a felon. My ability to get hired is sort of in jeopardy, and I acknowledge that I don't have money, but like, you're doing well, you're married to a police officer, police officers make crazy money, our daughter is not within any immediate financial need. Can I at least be present while I actively work on these things? And his ex-wife going, no, because that does happen to some people. And I don't want to like push this all baby daddy's good narrative, because like I had like my dad wasn't shit, so like I know, you know what I'm saying, like but like the prison industrial, but that is directly because of the prison industrial complex, you know what I'm saying? Like, they took him away from his dad, they took him away from his daughter, put him under child support, and now he can't get visitation until he gets money in a system that will not give him a job because he's a fucking felon. Like, you know what I'm saying? That happens to people.
You've brought so much heart to the story of Ant-Man.
Like, and like and I was watching a video of it recently where they're like, oh, Scott was being a deadbeat, and I'm like, no, deadbeat dads don't come to your birthday at all.
Right.
That nigga showed up and he's the only one that got her a gift. He's the only one that got Cassie a gift she liked, because he's the only one that listens to her.
You know his daughter's name, Cassie?
Yeah, that's the character's name.
Wait, did they give you MCU movies in jail? Were you just watching? How do you know all this? You like a real comic book dude. Get the fuck, what is this?
Spider-Man. I have a Spider-Man tattoo.
You also got a DBZ, right?
Yeah, I got DBZ, Power Rangers, Plank,
oh
Mega
my
Man.
God.
I have Boo up here. I have Doodle Bob. I have the Earthbending symbol.
You get that shit in jail? Where'd you get that?
Oh, I just had tattoos for a long time. I have tattoo artist people who would visit me and give me stuff.
Wow.
I have a Gyarados leg tattoo from Pokemon. You know the painting The Wave?
Yeah.
It's Gyarados coming out of the wave.
That's
on my thigh. I have a Digimon and Naruto neck tattoo. You know what I'm saying? Like,
get the fuck out of here.
I just got a hoodie on. Like, you know.
Okay.
I'm about this shit.
I'm seeing it. So okay, so you used to be a Hotep, and then you were like, y'all need to chill out a little.
I'm just like, hey, I don't fuck with misogyny or homophobia, and now I want to unpack those things within myself, because what the fuck have I been picking up?
Did you? Were you? Did you feel misogynistic and homophobic when you were in it, and then something clicked, or what?
There were ideas that I fundamentally did not subscribe to. And then there were ingrained behaviors, because I was a cis man who was socialized among other cis men in the general misogynistic culture.
I get you.
And then as I learned and as I grew and as I like, you know, was with a partner who was socialized as a cis woman, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, some of my fundamental belief systems that I've been raised on put her in a situation where she's less than me, and I don't think she's less than. And it's fucked up that it be like that. Like a lot of men don't learn how to care about like women or other people in general until they're in direct relation to them, because like our understanding of empathy, especially like under the patriarchy, like just gets turned off. Like we are just taught not to give a fuck about other people unless they're like other men, and even then it's weird because you're constantly in competition with men that you're supposed to care about. It's also the reason that I believe most men are gay. I believe most men romantically love their homies and are sexually attracted to women, and are probably varying degrees of bisexual.
Let's unpack this. Because that's a take that I do not disagree with. you know when like, this is something I've noticed more. So a little bit about me. I grew up amongst the whites, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I'm getting through, man. I got a therapist. He's black. He's helping me.
That's good.
I watched Atlanta. But I came out here for a lot of different reasons, comedy, yada yada yada. One of the reasons I came out of Chicago was like, I know that there's a population of black people. I don't know shit about Chicago. I know the South Side and the West Side, but I know there's black people, and I need to find that for myself. And it has been really nourishing for my soul to just be around black people, to feel safe, to feel understood, to not have to explain things, you know? But at the other end of that, being around black men more than I'd ever been before, my age, the sexism and the homophobia is very real. And it's weird to me. That's one thing I'll give like little theater white kids, is they don't care who you're fucking. They don't care about that. And so I'm used to being around people that just don't give a shit. So being around groups of people that are like bothered by it confuses me. And I wonder your theory of most, is it men or black men? What are we talking
about? Most men in general,
men.
Because I believe this for white men too. Because like, as much as I have conversations like within the community about like homophobia, misogyny, etc., I also like to remind myself frequently that as bad as like black men can be, a lot of us were colonized into Western ideas of gender dynamics, gender binary, sexuality, etc. So we can only be as bad as the white people who passed all those anti-gay laws when we weren't allowed to vote.
That's fair.
Because who was opening up the asylums where gay people were getting lobotomized in the U.S., because that happened.
Right.
Who owns all the conversion therapy camps? There aren't a lot of black-owned conversion therapy camps. That's white folk. Tell
me if I'm wrong here in my history. If I understand correctly, I know that part of it is colonization and teaching of it, but if I understand correctly, a level of homophobia, specifically with men, is from slave owners raping, and that
is used as a justification for homophobia within some sectors.
Interesting. Of
conversation. And I will not say that it's flat out not true, because bug breaking did occur.
Bug breaking?
Buck breaking. That's what it was called.
Good Lord. Okay.
Buck breaking. Yeah, that's what it was called. It did happen. I do not know enough of the history of that practice specifically to speak to it to any degree that would be useful to this conversation.
Fair enough. I guess when I'm around other black men that are getting so upset by it, I'm like, are you gay? Are you hiding something? Like, cause
I mean, one, yeah, yeah, all these niggas gay. All these niggas gay.
Boozy badass.
Oh, Boozy gay as hell.
It's like it's you just
his name is a couple of letters off from Bussy. He's gay. He's this close to being Bussy. You turn them O's to you, Bussy badass. I got a badass Bussy.
It's just like, you shouldn't be this. If you really didn't like it, you wouldn't be around. Wouldn't talk about it so much. I don't know. There's a whole thing.
Like, I don't like broccoli. We ain't talked about broccoli once.
There you go.
I ain't brought that shit up once.
Broccoli, butt sex, and Boosie, the 3 B's. And when you were in Second City, was it improv or stand up?
It was stand up. I hate improv.
Okay, interesting.
I hate improv.
Let's discuss this. What's going on there? What
improv community is like the poly community of comedy.
Okay, please elaborate.
I don't want to be your third. I don't want to do that with you.
Interesting.
Stop inviting me places. Can we please just go to Wendy's and not do bits? Mm-hmm. Can we not talk about this right here in this Burger King?
The comics, from what I've been gathering and doing this podcast, really not a fan of the improvisers. And then the improvisers, the few I've spoken to, are in their own world. Like, they don't even think about stand-ups from what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. What do you think is... So for you personally, you just don't like the culture of improv? It's not the art form, it's the what's around the art form?
It's what's around it. It's the fact that it's a very limiting and predominantly white-run art form. Mm-hmm. And that as a black comic specifically, it's difficult to get billing in places that, like, put together 5 improv groups because the money is in improv. The booking is in improv. Like, there are places for stand-up. I'm not going to sit here and act like there ain't places for stand-up. Of course there are fucking places. Mm-hmm. Like, Laugh Factory exists. Zanny's exists. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's all these places where you can do your stand-up. But I just, you know.
Oh, my bad, man.
Oh, you good.
So
it get on my nerve. There's too many of their ass.
Why do you think white people have kind of gotten this strong hold on improv, and they don't want to let it go? What is going on there? Because it's hard for, when I'm in the improv areas I've been to, it's like it's hard for black people to get in, mostly because it's the foundation they've set up is so corny that black people were like, I can't. I don't want to. I did improv.
Corny's a good word.
I did for 10 years. I taught it for a while. Like, it's corny. It's really corny.
It's corny as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, it's like everybody wants to be, whose line is it anyway? And it's like, it's none of their lines. It's none of y'all. Like, it's none of you ever. Nobody's line. But I look at that, and it's like, one, it's a matter of geography.
Okay.
Because I had this conversation in a meeting at Second City where they're like, well, we want to work on diversity. And I'm like, you built this building in a segregated city, in the white half of the segregated city, and then name one of the restaurants after a year that black people couldn't vote yet. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What did you think was gonna happen?
Exactly,
like, what do you think is gonna happen? And then like you gotta remember, like, how much of the improv scene is Chicago local versus like out of town people, many of whom met their first black person in college. No matter what end of the spectrum you're on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even when it's welcoming, you're still going to deal with, like, the internalized racism. You're still going to deal with the invisible stuff. You're still going to deal with, like, the small things. In fact, you speak to your experience, because you did it for 10 years and you taught it. You enlighten me.
So I started when I was 14 in high school. I did comedy sports. And I'm working on balancing myself and not speaking. I'm working on not saying names, so I'm not going to say any names of people. I'm not a fan of the people I grew up with in high school in that improv area. I'll
text me the names later.
Nigga, we gonna get them.
I can't. I still got charges. We can find them on Twitter and make jokes about them. We may find
them. But I'm not a fan of these people. I was the only black kid in the entire theater for the most part. And, you know, they perceive themselves as the default human. Mm-hmm. You are the other, so you get to be you're put in this place of like, he's black. I mean, Chris Rock talked about it in SNL. About like you're just you're delegated to this. You're the black pawn. You're this pawn for them, and so. But I still loved the art form. I think the art form can be really good when it's done well. But like we're saying, the white people are corny. They don't have enough. They don't have enough to pull from to make things not corny, from my experience. In a general sense, usually, like I've met white people that have gone through hell and back, and when they have that, and when they've been around other types of people, that corniness dissipates because they have these other perspectives. It's like they insulate themselves to the point where their humor becomes so weak and brittle, and so I did that for 4 years. I learned all these skills that I think have been helpful for me in stand-up that have helped me feel comfortable on stage. Then I went to college. I started teaching it. I went to the National Comedy Theater in San Diego. They're better, but I was older, and it was a different context and time. But they're better, and there's something about it. You were describing it, the invisible stuff. This thing that you can't quite describe, and because white people work on hyper logic, I usually call it white male logic. You can't express anything that is not facts and on paper and has data. Like a good example, a really classic example of white male logic or hyper logic to me is if we say Black Lives Matter, they say all lives matter. And it's like, yes, but you're not, come on. Like the only reaction to that at this point is, come on. Like, you know what we're talking about. You know that the context, like you're either playing dumb or you're a fucking idiot. One of the two. And when it comes to the improvisers, I lean towards fucking idiot's aggressive. I lean towards ignorant. Like, they live in this world where they don't see us. They see everything in their own universe. I'm speaking positively about this guy, which is why I'm going to say his name. He's a comic. I rode with him. His name Max Sorich. We've been doing shows every now and again out in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And we drive out there, and I'm getting anxiety. We're in the Midwest. I know the history. We're in fucking Indiana. Like, it's scary. And in his brain, it's just life, whatever. And on the way to on these long 2-3 hour drives, I'm telling him all these stories about what happened to me. And he's like, Jesus Christ, like, that's really terrible. And he takes it in. And I told him about, like, my PTSD when it comes to being around too many white people and whatever. And every time he's always like, are you good? Do you need me to do something? Like, he checks in, he wants to make sure I'm okay. And that's so appreciated, but it's not acknowledged. But he does also acknowledge, like, if it wasn't for me telling him all this stuff, he's in his own world.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to think about that.
Right. And so it's like, and then when you go into a place, like, what's cool about stand-up is, as white and segregated as it is on the north side, what's nice about stand-up is that those white comics, are forced to be around us at least a little bit. And when they hear our perspectives on stage in a really blunt way. In improv, they're all white. They're all working together. You didn't see my quotes. They're working together. And they're insulating themselves so they don't have to see any other perspective. I've rambled. I have a question for you.
I mean, I was into it.
Oh, okay. I don't know. What do you think about what I said? And then I'll ask a question.
I think this, and one, you're right. And another thing is that, like,
do you want water, by the way?
Oh, I'm chilling.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
I'm gonna grab
what I've noticed is that the people of color that they are most comfortable with are like either mixed and were raised in white spaces, mm-hmm. and either agree with them or are used to making themselves small, or people who align with them in a way where you end up being the ass out or the bad black person. Because I've had experiences like that where it's like, well, Mohawk, why'd you make it political? And I'm like, because a white person just called me an N-word while we were doing. I didn't make it political. I acknowledged the politicism that existed, and I got called a slur. We're lucky we're having a conversation.
Can I speak to something you said? You said make yourself smaller. Mm-hmm. So for me, I never. Let me rephrase. Let me think about that for a second. I would never say I've ever aligned with them, but I do remember being a kid, and I think empathizing to the point of toxicity, where I keep bringing up things that are happening to me. Everyone's telling me I'm being crazy. Grown adults are telling me I'm being crazy. I'm making shit up. And so you eventually get to a point as a kid where you're like, well, that person has a beard and like has a driver's license. Clearly, there's something I'm doing, clearly. Mm-hmm. And make yourself smaller. I don't think I made myself smaller, but I did know how to make them comfortable. Like, I know that my voice makes white people so comfortable. The stuff they say around me is crazy because I speak their tone, their cadence. Mm-hmm. And I don't really feel like getting into the weeds of this, but going into the South Side and doing comedy makes it that much more frustrating. Because as soon as I open my mouth or my vibe, dudes on the South Side can pick up like, oh, he's not from around here. And that's another hurdle to get over. I've learned how to get over. I'm learning more about myself and I'm more comfortable in my skin. So it's far less of an issue now. But when I first moved here, it was a nightmare going to the South Side and talking and being like, oh, you're not going to listen to me because you think I'm being corny or you think I was rich or something growing up because of the way I'm talking. It's very frustrating. But I have this metaphor. So get ready for me to ramble some more. I have this metaphor about what everything and the George Floyd thing broke me. So and before I even say it, I do want to not apologize, but acknowledge that I can get why you would be frustrated with being the got arrested house arrest guy. And so my apologies for starting this conversation off all about that. Like,
it is what it be. You didn't know.
Yeah.
You had no way of knowing.
Well, so here's my metaphor. So being a black kid, especially in like white areas, it's like you grow up and you have this monster under your bed. Racism, sure, the metaphor. And it comes up and it scratches you and it goes back into under your bed. You call for your parents, America. The house is America. And your parents come in and you're adopted, let's say. And you're like, there's a monster under my bed. And your parents are going to be like, there's no monster. Come on, don't be ridiculous. There is, but you're a kid. And years go by. And it scratches you, and every night you're like, I'm telling you there's a monster. And your parents are like, that's ridiculous. Don't be absurd. Come on, we killed the monsters in the 60s. Aaron, you're being ridiculous. But then you go to school and you see the other orphan kids. And they're like, and you're like, I mean, there's a monster under your bed too. There's a monster under my bed too. Yeah, everyone's telling us there's no monsters. But after a while you get older and you start to think there can't be a monster because everyone's telling me there's no monster. Everyone's telling me there's no monster. So you start to lose your mind. And then one day quarantine happens and everyone in the house is trapped together. Your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sister, the fucking uncle that shouldn't be in the house, but he's stuck there too. We're all in this little house together. And then George Floyd gets killed. This is the first time that everybody, literally the world, is like not doing shit and has to pay attention. And George Floyd gets killed, and it's like the monster came out from the bed and just ransacked the house. And you're looking around, and you're like, this was the thing. I was telling you, there's a monster. And it's like the reaction I saw from white people was frustrating because it was like your dad and your sister, Max Sorich, for example, acknowledge it. And they're like, oh my God, you were right. There was a monster. We're really, really sorry. But then your mom and your brother are like, it's a bad apple monster. It's just the monster. Well, what did you do to the monster to provoke the monster? And you realize like, oh, this is in my house. This is my family. Like we're a country. We're supposed to be like connected. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, you knew this monster was here. You're part of this. And you've been fucking with me all these times. Like, I can give reprieve to people who just didn't understand. But it's infuriating when it's out in the open and all of these people that you're surrounded with still continue to deny it. And it's like, well, when the fucking lamp breaks Target during the rampage, I don't give a fuck. I've told you there's a monster. Like it's really frustrating. And so to finally be away from Riverside, that's where I'm from. I'm not from LA. To be away from Riverside, to be in a place where people aren't fucking gaslighting me is crazy. It feels like it's been a little over a year and I can see things clear. I can see through the smoke now. And it's been a lot, you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Yeah. And what I find fascinating to add on to your metaphor is after the monster ransacked the house after 2020 and the pandemic and the world opened back up, I realized how many people were willing to acknowledge that the monster was there, but wanted it to go back under the bed.
Yeah.
They didn't want to kill the monster. They didn't want to get rid of the monster. They didn't want to move the monster. They wanted to go back under the bed.
Yep.
So that they can go back to pretending that it's not there. It is literally what happened in Family Guy when everybody finally found out about the evil monkey in Chris's closet.
Do you have a Family Guy tattoo?
No.
Go, okay, good.
I don't like Family Guy that much. It is difficult for me to forget media that I've seen more than once.
That's fair.
If I see it twice, I remember most of it. You had a question that you wanted to ask me before the metaphor.
Oh, perfect. This actually goes into it. Do you see this changing anytime? Do you think this is going to get better? Because I think we're headed to a civil war.
We are probably going to head to a civil war within the next 5 years.
Okay.
I'm going to be on Instagram making I told you so videos because I've been trying to tell people, even through my Hotepism, I've been trying to tell people, yo, shit is going to hit the fan since 2014.
Yeah.
And shit, even being at Second City, like seeing how many white people were like going to protests, and I'm just like, you were denying that racism was happening at our job to my face as it happened to me. And now you're like in black spaces chanting, or more often than not, in predominantly white neighborhoods that you just gentrified, protesting on behalf of the people whose houses you took. You know what I'm saying? Which is always fun. It's like white people love to put up a sign in a neighborhood they just moved us out of because they love us. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I think about the city. The city of Chicago is kicking black people out of their house, calling the police on their neighbors for walking around in their own street, and then putting a Black Lives Matter sign in your window. That's how I feel about the city of Chicago.
I think what's tough for me I'm still grappling with is you grew up here since you were 6. Were you on the South Side? Were you around black people?
I was on the South Side the entire time. Okay. The year I lived on the North Side, the 2 years I lived on the North Side was the closest I had ever been with white people in proximity, because my entire life I have only lived with black people.
Whew, how did that feel for you before I get into my thing? Can you imagine being around that shit since you're a kid? It's crazy.
The way them motherfuckers smell like ham and don't be no ham in the house. Don't be no ham nowhere.
No washcloth.
No pork anywhere. No, not a rib. Not a pig foot. Nothing. Yeah. And they just smell like bologna in there. And I.
Me and Rachel have been talking about that recently, actually.
So you feel me? I was like, how do y'all smell like ham?
So for me, I think what I really struggle with is trust, because it's so hard to describe. Like some of these people were your best friends growing up. You don't have any other friends. Like these were my friends. I went to their houses. I ate dinner with them. I slept in their house, and it's like, I'm not going to say their name. So
you better than me. I'll be saying names.
I still want.
I know I can fight, so I say whoever name I want.
It's more for, if I'm on, like, I used to say names a lot. It's more for spiritual reasons.
It is safer and healthier.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, no, I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy for 2 years. It is better. Yeah. You begin to let things go. The less you give names and power to situations that have harmed you.
Especially putting it on wax like this would not be healthy.
Yeah, because you gotta edit this. You're gonna be seeing it.
I don't edit it.
Oh, good. Live crazy.
I do not edit it. I'll only edit if you tell me something needs to be edited. I'll do it, but outside of that, I just put it up.
I ain't said nothing salacious.
So there's this kid, and this is one example of many. But there's this kid, grew up with, I think I knew him in like middle school, bare minimum freshman year of high school. And he eventually got together with this other girl. These are all white people. He eventually got together with this other girl I knew. I'm going to keep it as vague as possible. We're in a relationship, and his one of his parental figures was pretty high up on the police chain where I was from. Been to this guy's house, met this guy's dad, smiles and hugs. Here's some gushers from the pantry. Let's all hang out. We're gonna watch Saw together and hang out, right? And I remember my gut being like, something's off. Like my spidey sense was like, something doesn't feel good, right? But again, gaslit to hell and told everything I'm thinking is crazy. So you don't know how to trust your gut. I'm learning it now. Mm-hmm. And I think I fuck up because now I'm just paranoid.
No, your tummy be telling.
Right?
Your tummy talk.
So I end up linking up with that girl before I moved out here and catching up. And I find out that, and she broke up with him. And I find out like, oh, they were just throwing niggas around that house all the time. And saying crazy racial stuff apparently, and it's like, first off, you're in the police. You're in the fucking police, right? I know. Nick, don't look at me. This needs to be a meme, right? Whatever this needs to be. All right, get the fuck out of my face. But and she broke up with him because he's doing it, and it's like it makes me wonder.
You telling your story.
It makes me wonder, like, what the fuck were you saying about? Get the fuck out of here. Makes me fucking hate you. It makes me wonder, what is this Hotep? Is this how you become a Hotep? Oh, nigga, get the fuck out. It makes me wonder, like, what the fuck were you saying about me when I left? And I did all the things. My mom raised me to survive. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Don't bother nobody. Don't be loud in other people's houses. Be respectful. I did all that shit. Who knows what they were saying about me when I left?
Probably on some one of the good ones shit.
Probably, yes.
Or some this is how they acted when we owned them type shit.
Mm-hmm. Probably. And it's so hard to deal with because I'm like, you're supposed to be my friend. And I don't know if I can put that into words for you in a way that's going to click enough because it's really hard to describe when you're like, I trusted all of you people. You kept telling me I was making stuff up. I have this theory. And it goes back to white people in art and their behavior in general. And the way I word it is fucked up. So maybe you can find a better way to word it, but this is the only way I know how to word it so far. And that is, I don't know if white people have souls. Do you know what I mean? It's a very intense look you're giving me.
Because my case is still open. I can say what I want to.
Okay.
But what I will say.
How about this? We'll write this. I'll say what you will say, then we'll discuss when the mic's off.
I will say this.
We're gonna wrap up soon anyway.
It is. I have never cared about an ant that I've stepped on, even by accident. And white people are very good at convincing themselves that everyone else other than them is an ant.
That is a great way to end the podcast. Let's take this picture, and I want to hear what you got to